All right. Jared, would you open us in prayer today? And just remember to pray for John's internet situation also.
Right? Maraming salamat po sa mga ito na ibigay sa amin. Maraming salamat sa opportunity to study into the composition. Tulungan niyo po kami, Panginoon. Niyo po ang bigay ng wisdom sa bawat isa, lalo na po sa aming teacher. And Lord, we also pray kay Jan sa internet niya, Lord, we pray na makasama siya. Maayos na po ang internet. Father, we also pray then, bless you po ang aming klase. So, sa pangalan na Jesus. Amen.
All right, today is an exciting day. We get to finish your hymns, and that's exciting. Your first original composition, I think, for both of you, right? This is your first original, your own, all the way your own. So that's great. So let's dive in. And see if there's any part reading errors left to catch. Maybe you guys got them all. You're getting closer and closer, I think. All right. I will play from the beginning. I wish you could see her whole piece. If I do that, can you still see that well enough? Okay. Then I can play the whole thing. You can hear what is here. All right, it's getting close. There's a few things still.
Where po doon?
Did you find one? Can you point it out
name
for us?
po, yung D ko po dun sa Jesus name before the chorus.
Yes, should be a C. Okay. I thought that was probably just a typo in the computer there. Oops. I think I'll do 3 lines for writing in it, because that makes it a little bit easier to see. Okay. Anything else? Any part writing errors? Let's see.
The doubling in Jesus, measure 8 po, first beat.
Measure 8, first beat.
La. A was doubled, I think.
Yes, the A is doubled. What do we normally have doubled?
The root.
Normally or what were you going to say?
D or F po.
Okay, so the D or the F, since F is scale degree 4, she could maybe double that. All right. Welcome, Rousseau. You actually don't have to be here now unless you want to be here. I was planning for your critique at 10 with Cherry. Does that work for you? Okay, you're welcome to stay. If you just want to get all the part writing rules, you can. You're welcome to stay, but you don't have to. All right. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Can anyone find any issues with the first line? We've kind of gone over it already. Let's just see if everything's working. For the most part, everything's working, I think. There's one place where I'm just looking at the line the tenors have and just wondering if I could give them a little nicer line. This is a little more advanced. We have the first get rid of part writing errors, then make it as smooth as possible, and then try to think of your lines. So look here in the first measure. The tenors have. It's fine, but it keeps going back and forth between the E and the G. So it maybe doesn't sound as melodic as it could. So I feel like we could make a change here that would make it a little bit more, it actually wouldn't make it smoother, but I feel like it would give the tenors a little more direction. So instead of having the open spacing, what could we do on this chord? How would we write it if we wanted it in close spacing? Instead of having G to C to E, what would it be?
Maybe we can switch C and E.
Right. We could put the E in the treble. We could put the C in the tenor. Give the tenors a little nicer line. It's a little thing, so you don't necessarily have to change that, but that's the only thing I see on those first four measures. So let's keep going then on the next phrase here up to the chorus. See if there's any issues here. Only a couple things here, and they're mostly doublings. I think both the places I found were two places where the doubling was not correct. Did anyone see it? Has to do with first inversion chords. And what we don't want doubled on a first inversion chord.
The third po.
We don't want the third doubled. Where do you see a couple places where we have some doubled thirds? We don't want them.
Measure 7 po.
First po.
Then measure 5.
Yeah, so we have something happening there, and then we have it happening again here. Easy to fix. So
Yeah.
I'll let you fix those. What should be doubled instead?
The root.
You have two other options.
C, E.
So we don't want to double the E, but we could double the C, or you could double the G.
The G.
So the G is in the melody, you could double that, or you could double the C. So that will not create any problems, I don't think, by making that change. All right, I think that was all I saw. So good, your verse is almost there. Let's go to the chorus now. And let's see if there's any issues on the chorus that anyone can find.
Oh no.
There's a lot of good things. A lot of things are working well. There's a couple places that we need to fix. Can anyone find a parallel? I found at least one parallel, and I found one bass issue. If you have any basses here, examine the bass line and see if there's something you wouldn't want to have to sing.
Oh no. Ayun parallel. 1,
Did you find
2,
it?
3,
Where?
4, 5, 6. Ah. Hindi naman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ay, sorry, nakamute pala ako. So, solid po, ma'am.
Solid. No, that works well. You're fine there. You have some nice contrary motion going on.
F is a little low for some basses.
The F. This is what I'm worried about. Most basses aren't going to want to have to sing the F. The G, we can make them do G, but F, we just don't want to do that. So we need to not let the basses go that low. Instead, you're going to need to use this as your bass note, your higher F as your bass note. So we'll have to adjust when we get there. How could she get from this chord? You're doubling the F anyway, right? So we could actually just have it a double unison F. That wouldn't change any of your part writing. You wouldn't be able to do this E, but it doesn't really work so well anyway because it's a 1 chord. All right, no, it's a 4 chord. It's a 4 chord, so we don't usually have a 7th on a 4 chord. So you're probably better off to just leave that F in the bass line, just have a doubled F. So terrible.
That's my first option po then.
Yeah, so that will work better. But then we have a little bit of an issue right here. And we would have voice crossing if we stay up on the F with the way it's currently written. But if we follow this suggestion, we wouldn't have voice crossing anymore. And I think we'd have a little bit nicer situation. So do you see what would happen? We would get rid of these C's, and now the basses would move down and the tenors would do something else. Does that make sense? When you fix this to a first inversion and add the tenor part, that might adjust a little bit of connecting to this next chord. So you might have to just revoice this next chord a little bit to make it smooth. But what you have is working. It just depends on when you fix this measure. It might need an adjustment. Okay, now this is the measure. This is the measure. I see a major error. Anyone find it? Jared.
Measure 2 and beats 2 and 3 po. Yung C and B.
The C and the B.
Yung C and B.
Alto, and in the bass. This thankfully is solved very, very easily. We just have to change which voice. Will we change the tenor, the bass, or will we change the alto? What's going to be the better voice to change? Mayflower, what do you think?
I'm having hard times po dyan. Alto po sana.
Let's change the alto because the bass is a nice progression. So we'll change the alto note. So what should you double instead of the doubled third? Because that's the third of the chord again. And it's a leading tone. So two things we don't want to double. So what's a better note to double if it's first inversion?
The G po.
Possibly you could double the G because G would be dominant. But what's the rule for first inversion? What's the first?
D.
The D. We'd rather double soprano. So that's actually an easy fix. You just can let the soprano and the alto be on the same note. It's very smooth to the next chord. Then here, it's not incorrect, but we just were at the C. We went to the G with the B in the bass, and we're coming right back to the C. I think originally you had an A minor chord here. And I think that would work better. And then when we get to the C over G, it would be nice to keep that G in the bass all the way. So this would end up being an A minor chord. This would end up with a G staying in the bass. And then your last measure works fine. So it's just right here. So if you end up with A's in the bass and you can repart right what that would look like, what your rest of your voices would be on, then here, what do you have doubled in this chord?
C po.
The C, which is tonic, so possibly, but usually on a second inversion chord, what's the right doubling? What's the first choice for doubling?
G po.
G. So it'd be stronger if you would double the G here. we would have a better, otherwise you have this octave between alto and tenor, so it's a little bit odd anyway. So better to double the G. And then in this one, do the same thing, just keep the G in the bass. And you will have it. Very close with this. Any questions? You good? Good enough?
Wala naman po.
All right, let's keep going. John, do you also have music to submit?
I'm sorry po.
Not in the room. Okay. We're glad you were able to join
I'm
us.
sorry po.
We were actually praying that you would be able to join. We didn't know what your internet situation was.
We saw some tech guys today, but I don't know if they're fixing our line or not.
Okay. So we need to pray.
We're hoping that it's ours today. I hope that it's our turn. I think I submitted po a copy sa Messenger.
I don't think I received anything. Oh, wait a minute. You submitted it Tuesday, Diva.
Yes.
Okay. So I think I didn't look at it because I was looking today and I didn't notice that. Let's go ahead and look at Jared's, and I'll try to, I need to transfer yours so I can get it on my computer here. Just 1 second. I think I can do that. Okay, I wonder if it'll let me pull it right into this. That would be. Did it put it there? It's there. Wow, technology is amazing. That just went from my computer and dragged right into the file that we're using. That's pretty amazing to me. From my phone. Okay, good. Let's see. Wrong one of Jared's here. I have John's. Okay. Let's go ahead and go over Jared's. And let's just see what he has. Can you all see this well enough if I shrink it down? Is that big enough to still be readable? Is that okay? Okay. Let me try. Okay, good. This is coming too. It's a lot smoother than it was. So you're smoothing out a lot of things. Did anyone see anything? Jared, did you see anything you want to point out? Did anyone else see any issues?
I'm not sure lang po sa last part din.
Right here?
Yes po.
Yes. I think that what we need is we need the altos to come with the tenor and bass. And then when the melody comes, we need the altos to join that C. Otherwise, that C and B are too much of a clash. It's like suspension and resolution at the same time. But if you just put the altos earlier, it would be like 8 notes coming down. Does that make sense? So the alto would be quarter note on the C, and then eighth note B, eighth note C. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, I got disconnected po. Ano po yun?
So the alto would be on beat 3 a C, and then on beat 4 it'd be an eighth note B and an eighth note C. So let's. And then don't forget to get the double stem at the end also. Got that? Okay, let's go back to your beginning again. And a lot of things are smoother and working pretty well. So let's go through the first phrase. I don't see any issues there. So let's do the second phrase. I feel like right here, it's not wrong to have an octave between alto and tenor, but it seems like unless there's a really, really good reason why we need to have an octave, especially for two beats, usually it's kind of, you have an octave there just to kind of pass into a new chord. It just doesn't, it feels too spread out. It doesn't give the voices the support. So I think it'd be stronger off to revoice these two chords to make them work a little bit better. And then what you have in this measure works fine. Another option would be you could actually just hold the 1/6 chord all the way over, but it's not necessarily more correct. It's just your preference gives you a slightly different, gives the basses just on the E, but what you have works also. Then I think my only other comment is you could put your 7th in this chord if you wanted to. Don't have to, but you could. It would make the tenors have a nice smooth line down to the E. And the G to the E. Okay, so that is the verse, just about there. And let's go to the chorus. Good, and I think what you have here works well. You did some good work here to kind of avoid, I think you were going to end up having an issue somewhere. I guess it would have been between, if you had kept it the same as your first time, you would have had parallel fifths, so you were able to revoice that to make that work. You could include a 7th here if you wanted to. The altos could have the 7th for a little stronger resolution. Up to you. But otherwise, that's working pretty well. Then the next phrase. Okay, I have a couple issues here. We have a doubling issue, and then we have a couple things just for smoothness. Can anyone see what that might be? Yes, Jared.
The E po, sa glory.
Yes. So, doubling issue there. And
C.
I think you're keeping the G chord, which is good, on the pickup face to face, but I think there's a smoother way to do it. Do you see another option that would be a little smoother? Because right now you're going from the altos from a G to a B and then leaping down to an E. And I feel like there's a smoother option.
How about I put the tenor? Ay, wait. What if I put the altos to G?
Yes. And the tenors
To B.
to B. And we have the D coming in the soprano, so it's okay that we don't have the D right away in the downbeat. That leads us a lot smoother. Then this is a tricky measure to figure out how to do. So right now we have several leap things going on. What I really wish is that we could have a duet with the melody, at least with these two notes. I wish we could have one voice moving stepwise motion. And there is a voice that would sound really nice. Can you figure out what voice this would be? Anyone see it? You want a voice that's either a third or a sixth away. The nicest thing to do when you have a non-chord tone, a neighbor tone, or a passing tone like this is to keep your two of your voices identically the same. So like the whatever it is, bass and alto, or a tenor and alto, and then have one of the voices move in a nice duet with the non-chord tone. So you keep the tenors, which is fine. The basses are a tenth from the melody. So it would be possible for you to move the basses down here to the G. The tricky thing is, in doing that, we'd need to leave the E in the alto voice because we want to have everything else to stay the same and only the two duet partners can move. So that sounds really well. It works really well. The problem is it creates parallel fifths with where you're going. So then you have to revoice this chord to make it work. But I think there's a way to revoice it that's not too awkward. You see what we could do in that chord? If we would have a G and a C, an E and a B, then here we would probably have the tenors on what note?
C.
Yes. So we would not do the traditional voice doubling because it doesn't work smoothly in this case. You would double the tonic, which is okay. And then what does the alto need to have?
A.
The altos need to have the third. So the altos have to jump a little bit, but I feel like it's worth it to get the smoothness here. Then on this one, since it's a repeated, you could actually jump back to what you have. Or you could stay. Depending what we do here. This is a little bit of a leap also. There might be another way you could voice that would work equally well or better. And then of course you'll revoice this one also. We don't have the doubled. So kind of say that just needs to go smoother, but I think you can do it. I think you're getting the idea of how to maneuver more smoothly now in the part writing. It's working, just get the smoothness there.
How about if I put the glory, the G, the glory, the C, I mean the C to G,
In which voice?
alto po, then tenor to C.
Yes. So that would be an option. Either way, whether you kept this chord the same or whether you changed it, that would be an option. Then when you got here, you could still revoice your alto the way you want it to be. You have two options for where the alto could go. Partly depending what you do with the tenor too. So you just could kind of rethink that chord. Then we get to your very last phrase. And I wish I could see it all here, but I can't. So let me clear this and go down to the next part. Okay. The very last phrase. And I think the only thing here, it's all basically working. You possibly could add a seventh if you wanted. Tenors or the altos are on C's the whole way, so you could just keep them there. Gives a little bit more of a heightened resolution sound. And then we already discussed what you'll do here with the alto. Like that. All right, any questions on that? All right, very good. Exciting. They're almost all there. Okay, John, let's go on to yours. Okay, let me see if I can do this so we can see. You know what? I think I need to make it. Let me just print this real quick because I don't have a copy. John, do you have any questions about anything in this piece before we just play it through?
I just wanted to note po that last stanza po, ay last system, pick up to 13. I tried doing it 1-7. So on the alto line, on the tenor line, I mean,
Okay.
I moved the A to G. I just did that like Thursday. I'm trying to feel things using my guitar. So I think that would give a more forward motion going to D flat, but I'm not so sure.
Yes,
So
it
maybe you
would.
can
It
give
might
me
be a
some
nice idea.
feedback
One
on
thing
that.
we would have to consider there. So you put it in the tenors right here. It would have been a G flat.
Yes, po. The A flat would be G, and then I mean, both the tenor lines po. The first one, so that would
The
be
first one also.
1-7, and then po, 1-7 in root position, and then 1-7 on first inversion.
Okay. Let's try it. One thing we have to consider with the seventh chord that's a little bit tricky is the resolution. The seventh usually needs to resolve down. That's not completely hard and fast rule, but most often. So let's just look at it when we get there. But I want to play through from the beginning, if we can. If I shrink this to see the whole stanza, can everyone see that well enough? right there, right?
Yes po. Ta.
Okay, good. We'll see where that's going.
My question po pala is at the end of the each system, is the sustain okay? I observe that every end of the system there is a sustain.
Yes, it's pretty typical actually to have the suspensions. Um, this one, however, you're actually doing like a 9/8 suspension. It looks like instead of the 4/3. Oh, sorry, I guess you couldn't see all of that. All right. Good. A lot of it's working, John. And yours is double the length. So there's a lot going on here, and we haven't been able to have quite as many critiques. So let me go back to the beginning. Let's just look at the first two lines and see if there's anything there. Let's see. I am wondering, there's a few places you have non-chord tones. And like right here in the melody, and just what I was talking to Jared about, it'd be nice if we could get another voice to do something with it so that the other notes can stay the same, but some movement going on. And then right here, why did you choose the doubling? It looks like you're doubling
I'm doubling the fifth po.
the fifth, which could be legal, but what was your thought process? Why were you choosing to double the fifth rather than the tonic?
I don't want to keep the tenor line on A for a whole measure.
Okay. It's really okay, especially in a hymn. It's helpful in some ways to your church people. If you were doing like an a cappella section of a choral piece, then maybe not. But what we end up having an issue with, we end up having an issue here. And if you just kept your tenors, it would solve it. Now you would then end up with a tripled root here without the fifth. So actually, let's talk about that. You could put, where could you put the tenors here? If we had the tenors on an A flat here, we could move the tenors to what note on this pickup? We have to move the alto and the tenor both. Instead of having the open position chord that you have, we could do a closed position chord.
Can I move? Wait. I can move the alto sa E and then tenor sa C.
Right, you could do that. So that would give you a little bit of variety there in that measure, which would be nice for the tenors to have, avoid the parallels. Okay, here's an option. Your basses with your melody are a nice 10th. So you could let the bass, if you wanted to, be the one that had kind of a neat little part that did a duet with your melody, since you have these non-chord tones going on. So your bass line could go. But then, as I was mentioning to Jared, if you ever do that where we have a duet part going on, the other voices need to just be on the same note, just all the way across. We don't want any change in the other voices. So you'd want to leave your tenors here on the B flat. The only place we'd have to change is when we got here. We would have to go ahead and make the changes you made, otherwise we don't have the third. But up until there, it would work. Actually, I think I would keep the tenors on the B. So if you keep the tenors all the way on the B, the altos have the F or the D. You can let the altos move to the D, and that gives us enough. Then here, I think the doubling would be stronger and smoother to go ahead and double. It's a second inversion chord if we count it as a D flat chord. Otherwise, it's an A flat major chord with a, what would it be, like suspension. So what would the usual doubling be here?
A.
If we kept the A flat, which you go to next, that would just smooth out that a lot. Then when you go to your 1/7 here, since it's really truly not just a 1 with a major 7th, it's truly the 5/7 of 4. What do you need to do with your G? Right now you have a G natural.
Should I raise it? I have
If
step.
you raised it, you would have a G sharp. Is that what you want?
I'm not sure.
The 5/7, the dominant 7, is always a major chord with what kind of a 7th? Does anyone
Minor
remember?
7.
Minor 7th. So what would a minor 7th be from A flat?
G natural.
G natural would be a major 7th.
Oh, G flat.
G flat. So we need that G flat there. So you have to mark that in. And then like here, your G flat is resolving to the F, which is what it should do. But we do have F in the melody, so that gives us a doubled F. I don't know if that's going to be the strongest. Let's just see. So I think I'd prefer not to have the doubled F here. I feel like your voicing isn't as strong. So what would be
Maybe I
another
can switch the alto and the tenor.
Well, we don't want the doubled F, so we wouldn't want the alto to be on F either. What would
I
we
mean,
rather have?
I'm sorry. I can I can use A for the tenor and then move the alto to D.
Yeah. Good. So
D flat, I mean.
yes, D flat for the altos. Good. So that doesn't let us resolve this one correctly because we're going to have to resolve it up to the A flat instead of down to the F. So for that reason, you might be stronger not to use the B flat or the G flat here, because if you kept the tenor on the A flat, we wouldn't have any resolution issues. Good, and all this is smooth. We get here, we have a voice crossing issue, which if there's
Excuse
nothing,
me,
I'm
can I
sorry?
just clarify? Are you saying that I can keep the G flat, or should I remove the seventh and go with A?
Because we can't resolve it properly, you'll be smoother if you went with the A. If you examine lots of hymns, you will find sometimes they don't resolve the sevenths correctly. So it's possible
Apo.
to not resolve it correctly, but a piece that has a lot of unresolved seventh chords tends more to pop music.
Okay. We don't
You
want
can
that.
do a few. So I feel like right here it might be smoother without it because my ear is really wanting the tenor line to go down. You really feel like that resolution is pulling so strongly, especially because it's an accidental. It's not just a seventh that's already in the key, it's actually an accidental. So I feel like that heightens the need for the resolution for my ear.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Sige po.
Then right
Thank you.
here, we have voice crossing. And if we had no way to fix it, we would probably leave it because that's one of those lesser problems. But I think there's a way you could fix it. So let's see if we can. What could we do with the alto instead of having the alto stay doubled on the E flat? What's an alternate doubling we could use to solve that issue?
Jump to A.
Yes, we could have them go ahead and go down to the A flat, which would be smooth to where it's headed next. And then it would already be ready for what's coming next. Yeah, I think that's working. The other option you could do, what you have here works fine, John. But if you wanted to give the altos more of a duet part with the melody, you could let the altos do a C, but then the tenors would have to stay on that B flat. So that's an optional. You can see which
I'm
one.
sorry po.
So on your passing tone right here, you could let the altos play a duet with the passing tone if you would like, and then you could also let the tenors, but the tenors would have to stay on the B flat if the altos did that passing tone. So what you have also works.
Okay.
So that's just an option, not a requirement. Okay, so we're almost there. You're almost there in the first part here. Let's go up to the last two lines. Good. Most of this is working really well. Let me see where I was thinking something to change. Same thing right on this passing tone. What could the alto do to have a nice duet with the melody right here?
Mhm. Actually, I don't know po.
We
Because
could, we
I'm
don't have to
trying to
worry.
keep the third.
Right. So we don't have to worry about the third though when you have the fourth, because the fourth is like their suspension tone or your. So we don't actually. We prefer not to have the third when you have the fourth.
So can
So
I move it to B flat?
yes. So you could let it be in a third in a duet with a melody. As much as possible, whenever your melody has a passing tone or a neighboring tone, try to find one voice that can do a duet with it. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it works a lot. So here, that would just make it. Oops. Okay. Then. Okay, all of this is fine, and we get here and we have that same thing where you have a lot of non-chord tones in your melody. So that is what makes it a little trickier to part right. So it'd be nice if you're on a B flat minor chord here, works well. Then we go to the A flat, then we go to the, then we go to the C, then we go to the E flat. And so it'd be nice if we could find a way to have a duet partner with those two notes. One of the voices that is a third or a sixth away, and see if you can make that work. And then when we get to your
Maybe
E
the
flat,
tenor?
maybe the tenor. I'll let you just try. I'll let you see if you can make that work. When we get to the E flat, your suspension is going to work better for a 5 chord to use the 4 to 3, because then you delay the leading tone. Whereas if you use the 9/8 suspension, that works better for a 1 chord or another chord. So I'm feeling like here you'd be better off. Or actually, if you wanted, you could do a double suspension. You could keep your altos doing what they're doing, and you could add the tenors with the 4/3. So you'd have a 9/8 in the altos and a 4/3 in the tenors. And that might be nice.
So I'm keeping the B,
You're keeping, I'm sorry?
right? From the last measure we have B set tenor. You want me to keep that on this measure?
Well, what would a 4/3 suspension be in the E flat chord?
I'm sorry, A pala.
Oh, so you'd be moving it to the A and then to the G, resolving.
Is that what you're
And
saying?
this might change a little bit because you're probably going to rework these tenor notes maybe a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
if you can make it work. Yes, okay, good. So your verse is just about there. I've about finished it. Let's go on and see what your chorus is doing. So you have something, you'll do that double suspension maybe. All right, so we have some things going on here. I'm not so sure about this section. I know you're just wanting to give yourself some nice moving parts there. But
Opo, I reinvented the baseline.
yes. But what's one
It
problem
was
is you have a 6/4 chord. What are
opo.
some rules about 6/4 chords? Are we allowed to go to a 6/4 chord whenever we want?
I think uh,
No. We have to make sure that the 6/4 chord is approached and left how. Unless it's a cadential 6/4. If it's a 1/6/4, it can be at a cadence. But otherwise, a normal 6/4 chord has to be approached by step,
a
which you
step,
did, and it has to leave by
a
step.
step.
Thank you. So, if there's some other option. But as a general rule, you just avoid your 6/4 chords unless they're just like a passing bass note, because
Because
they as well.
I'm thinking po, since this measure is what you're mentioning na suddenly I just have a one chord in a measure. So I'm trying to maybe vary it. Tapos po, this left me with lesser problems. With I mean parallels po.
You could possibly go back to your A flat here and do A flat over C. Then we're just doing a first inversion. We don't have a second inversion. That would be potentially possible. I'll try to, maybe let me look at this a little bit more and just see if there's any other options. But going on, because you have all these non-chord tones, we kind of have the same issue here. It'd be nice to have a duet with that one, with that melody note. That's kind of like a seventh, but you have all these non-chord tones that we want to kind of play with. Again, it could happen in your bass even. It would change your part writing just a little bit, but try to find a note that can maybe be some sort of a duet with these. It doesn't have to be completely the same voice, but this would be the same voice. And then when we get to this chord, you already have this retardation happening in the melody, so I wouldn't put another suspension in the other part. I would just let the melody do it. So what are you doing there? Let's see. Okay. Good. You have nice duet part going on here. If you went down to the seventh in the tenor, you would have a nice third between your melody and your tenor part. I don't know that it will follow, but it will at least could be there. What chord are you going for here?
I'm trying to make that like major two. I just tried. That's something that I take note of to ask. If not, I'll just keep it because I think that
So
the
you're thinking like a
step
5 of 5.
uh,
Because of the melody being on a C, you're going to be better off to use a secondary leading tone instead of a secondary dominant. I don't know if you were able to watch the lecture last time yet, but it would be a 7
I will try.
of 5. We just discussed this last week. Everybody take note. Here's a real life example. The 7 chord usually comes on a weak beat leading to a strong beat. So this would be a good place for you to put it. And the only difference is it's a 7 chord, so it's built on this D natural. And instead of having a B, it would have an A flat, which would actually be smoother also. You can hear how that would work. I don't know what the text is saying there. Does the text, let's see, narinig. Maybe, I don't know.
What would be the tenor line there po? I'm sorry, I got a little
The tenor would have A flat.
disconnected there.
So it would be a D diminished, half diminished chord. D, F, A flat, C. So then the only problem I'm seeing is you end up with parallels here.
Oh yeah, that is a parallel.
But I think you could fix that by putting the soprano or the suspension in the alto part. And maybe you could put the 7th down in the tenor part. That would maybe work. Okay. What is our time? Our time is over. Let's see. If any of you need to go, you're welcome to go. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the time, so I didn't say it earlier. And I'm just going to play through these last 2 lines, and we'll be done. All right. But if any of you need to leave now, feel free. You're welcome to. We're missing something at your climax. What are we missing at your climax?
Um, C, E, E. I'm missing this, the E, the third.
You're missing the 3rd, and it's a super, super important one because this is not even part of the key.
Sorry.
What should it be?
The alto should be E natural.
E natural. And then you could, it'd be nice to have a G in there, but you would have to maybe rework your part writing to get that to work.
Or maybe I can have the E natural for the tenors.
We want that nice bright sound.
I think that's still singable for.
Yeah, so just look at this measure a little bit and look at the smoothness of the alto and tenor line, leading from where you're coming,
Okay.
going to where you're going, but your chord progressions are working fine. And let
Before
me
I forget po, sa measure 29, is my bass line okay on beat 3?
25, 26, 27, 29. Right here.
Because I feel like I created a different chord there, like a passing chord, by moving the bass line to C.
I think it works. I don't know that a church congregation will do it as well, but it would work great in a choir piece, and it sounds fine here. Let me just play your second to last line. Again, it's that non-chord tone. We just want to give it a partner, give it a duet somewhere, somehow. I think that would be your biggest thing overall, John, because you have a lot of those non-chord tones in the melody. Just kind of play back through them, and any of them that sound kind of thorny and a little bit rough when you get there, see if you can find one other voice to have a duet with it, and it will get rid of that thorny sound. All right. Questions at all?
The baseline sa kapahaya on measure 29 po.
Yeah, and I think that
C.
I think
It
that's
sounded like
had a
C
crash.
with added D.
We kind of get that
C
thorny.
minor with an added D. Should I just
Because
keep
what's
the C on?
You're already giving us a nice duet, so we'd rather that all the other voices stayed the same. If you're trying to change
So I'll just
everything, it's
keep
not
the
a true
D
chord.
after.
It's not working as well.
Okay. So I'll just keep the D flat then.
Yeah. So you'd be better off just to keep the bass line. Keep the bass on the D flat.
Apo.
Even keep the tenors. Because
Sa
whenever
A?
we have that non-chord tone and we have a duet going on, the other voices need to stay the same as much as possible. If they move or leave, it just throws what's happening. Okay,
po.
very good. You're very
Okay,
close.
thank you.
You're just about there. All right, thank you all. We will, next week, Tuesday, you will turn in, I believe it's Tuesday, you will turn in your final copy of these. So we are close to having your 4-part hymns done. Then you will start your compositional proposal. So John, if you haven't watched the beginning of last class, I kind of explained what that was all about for the next critique. So you can watch that and see.
Thank you po.
All right, any questions?